Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, the US or the stock market is doing pretty bad, and I got an article here and the numbers are staggering actually, and it's true that this comes from a Russian news outlet which is Sputnik, but numbers are numbers, so it's just the fact that these guys are reporting it. It's not, they can fudge the numbers actually. I mean, they can, but we would catch them. So in this case, this is, as I said, from Sputnik. This is the title. Nearly $10 trillion in US wealth wiped out by 2022 stock market losses, equal to 43% of GDP. That's from Federal Reserve private bank, okay, just so you know. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the wealth of the world's 10 richest people doubled, reaching 6 times that of the poorest 3.1 billion people. Emergency measures such as moratorium on foreclosures, evictions, and student loan payments helped forestall greater loss in the US, but those programs have since been ended, threatening new impoverishment. A steady decline in the New York Stock Exchange since the start of the year has erased more than $9 trillion in investors' wealth, CNBC reported on Wednesday, citing Federal Reserve data. The decline is expected to continue, as has possibly already reached $10 trillion. The data shows America's holdings of corporate equities and mutual fund shares have declined from a January high of $42 trillion to about $33 trillion as of the end of the second quarter on June 30th. However, those numbers are nearly 3 months out of date, and with the continued decline of the stock values since July, experts expect the losses could total between $9.5 trillion and $10 trillion. And I'm quoting, for perspective, 10 trillion is 43% of the US gross domestic product, GDP, and larger than the economies of every country on the planet except for the US and China. I repeat, $10 trillion is 43% of the US gross domestic product, so half of it, almost, right? And is larger than the economies of every country put together except US and China. How about that? Every country on the planet except for the US and China. Mark Zandi, chief economist on Moody's Analytics, told CNBC that, and I'm quoting, the loss of stock wealth suffered to date, if sustained, will be a small but meaningful headwind to consumer spending and economic growth in coming months. The staggering loss of wealth is especially poignant as Oxford reported that the wealth of the world's 10 richest billionaires. Or is that? I lost it. Yep, gotta find it. Got it. It was right there, but whatever. What can I say? So that the wealth of the world's 10 richest billionaires doubled in the 2 plus years of the COVID-19 pandemic, while 573 new billionaires were created in that time. At the same time, another 160 million people were pushed into extreme poverty. And I'm quoting, we expect 263 million people to sink into extreme poverty this year at a rate of 1 million every 33 hours, as soaring inflation has added a cost of living crisis on top of COVID-19, Oxfam said in May. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a stock index that commonly serves as a stand-in for the status of the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, as a whole, has lost nearly 1/5 of its value since its January 4th high of 33,799.65. The performance of the US economy has largely followed the same track, with a Department of Commerce report in July revealing 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. Now that's a recession by definition, right? Despite this, the Biden administration has resisted calling the situation a recession for political reasons, since the Democratic Party faces a tough fight going into the November 2022 midterm election. And I'm quoting, these guys, the Russians, are still stupid. They still think that it matters who's up there, the Democrats or Republicans. But anyway, and I'm quoting, record level inflation and the Federal Reserve's response to it have also helped to dampen economic performance. The central bank has pledged to central bank, it's a private bank, it's central bank, my ass, pledged to continue strong and steady increases in interest rates in an attempt to discourage new investment, slow down the velocity of money, and halt the depreciation of the dollar's value. However, an April study by the Economics Policy Institute found that the corporate profits accounted for 54% of inflation in the United States in the last 2 years. Yeah, meaning that the problem is price speculation, not overager lenders. So, what are we going to do about that? The Fed's summary of economic projection last week showed the unemployment rate is expected to rise from its current 3.7% to 4.4% by next year, while US GDP growth is forecasted to be just 0.2% for 2022. That is just a little bit of the 50%. Remember, the US, when they talk about the unemployment rate and they put it 3.7, they do not include those people who are unemployed but stopped searching. So let's say I'm unemployed they don't have me in the statistics because I'm not searching anymore for a job. I just stay home and whatever I'm doing, you know what I mean? So here it is, trillions, $10 trillion. That's a lot of money, and that's from half of the as wealth loss, half of the US GDP. It's okay. The US has more national debt than any other country on this planet, and it's way above, not way, but it's over the national GDP. So what can you do? It's like you have a it's not measured like that, but as a little visual, or at least an example. Let's say you make $100,000 a year and you owe for whomever about $120,000 a year, and that's with inflation that grows, and you have out of those $100,000 that you get, you don't have a profit actually, because all the payments that you do, you have a deficit. You live in a deficit. You don't save money at all to pay that. So that debt is not payable. Why? Because you don't have money to pay it. You lose money and you borrow money, you print money, and then there you have it, inflation and so on. Great. But at least we got beer and games on the TV and politicians telling us how great we are. We are great, but not that great. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.